Alright, welcome to PSTAT 160B, the second lecture. I want to give you a little bit of an overview of what what's to expect and what you should be kind of reading and going through at this time. Definitely one thing to review are Markov chain basics, right? So from 160A, you should be fairly comfortable with a lot of these concepts, and in this class we're hopefully going to kind of turn it up a little bit in terms of the level of difficulty and the types of calculations that you'll be able to do. But to kind of get and that's what this kind of lecture gets us going towards. But in the meantime, you kind of want to be reviewing your Markov chain basic definitions and concepts, whether you look at the the previous year's 160A notes, or reading Ross, right? So this is taken directly from Ross chapter 4. Certainly you should be very familiar with all these definitions. You'll notice that in Ross at the bottom left there, he puts together this one-step transition probability matrix, and I think one distinction could be going from 160A to B is that we may have chains with infinite state spaces, right? So this matrix could in fact be infinite, and so I'm going to maybe get away a little bit from the transition matrix type of terminology and away from finite state Markov chains, and look at examples where you're just looking at the one-step transition probability as the kind of the sole kind of object for analysis. So in this lecture we're going to look at 3 earned problems, and that should definitely set you on your way to finishing up homework 1. We're going to look at what we already introduced as the first step transition analysis, right? This was shown to you in the first lecture with the computation of the number of particles in the Ehrenfest urn, and so we looked at the expected value of a stochastic process of time k, and this this first step transition analysis, which uses conditional probabilities, is sort of an indispensable tool and something kind of like a pattern of calculation that once you are comfortable with is will be really helpful for you. And so in the next segment, what I'll start with is just get a little bit of some of the basics out of the way, the Markov chain basic definitions, like what's a Markov chain. I'll mention some of the examples from Ross you should be reading, and then after that, the next sort of 3-4 clips, we'll sort of systematically go through 3 earned problems, 3 Markov chains, and I'll show you kind of how I think about them, and how to sort of get your head around some of the calculations that are important, right? And some of the tips and tricks, writing down the state space, getting a feel for the transition probabilities, finding the transition probabilities, and then the goal finally is to really get a handle on this first step transition analysis. And so I think that's a good enough overview for this lecture. So